No, answered Mary. I hate it. Well, that's because thou art not used to it, Martha said, going back to her hearth. Thou thinks it's too big and bare now, but thou will like it. Do you? inquired Mary. Aye, that I do, answered Martha, cheerfully polishing away at the grate. I just love it. It's none bare. It's covered with growing things that smell sweet. It's fair, lovely in spring and summer when the gorse and broom and heather's in flower. It smells of honey and there's such a lot of fresh air. And sky looks so high and the bees and skylarks make such a nice noise humming and singing. I wouldn't live away from more for anything. Mary listened to her with a grave, puzzled expression. The native servants she had been used to in India were not in the least like this. They were obsequious and servile and did not presume to talk to their masters as if they were equals. They made salams and called them protector of the poor and names of that sort. Indian servants were commanded to do things, not asked. It was not the custom to say please and thank you, and Mary had always slapped her ayah in the face when she was angry. She wondered a little what this girl would do if one slapped her in the face. She was a round, rosy, good-natured creature. But she had a sturdy way which made Mistress Mary wonder if she might not even slap back, if the person who slapped her was only a little girl. You are a strange servant, she said from her pillows rather haughtily. Martha sat up on her heels with her blackening brush in her hand and laughed without seeming the least out of temper. I know that, she said. If there was a grand missus at Misselthwaite, I should never have been even want under housemaids. I might have been let to be scullery maid, but I'd never have been let upstairs. I'm too common, and I don't do much Yorkshire. But this is a funny house for all it's so grand. Seems like there's neither master nor mistress except Mr. Pitcher and Mrs. Medlock. Mr. Craven, he won't be troubled about anything when he's here, and he's nearly always away. Mrs. Medlock gave me t' place out of kindness. She told me she could never have done it if Misselthwaite had been like other big houses. Are you going to be my servant? Mary asked, still in her imperious little Indian way. Martha began to rub her grate again. I'm Mrs. Medlock's servant, she said, and she's Mr. Craven's, but I'm to do the housemaid's work up here and wait on you a bit. But you won't need much waiting on. Well, who is going to dress me? Demanded Mary. Martha sat up on her heels again and stared. She spoke in broad Yorkshire in her amazement. Can I dress the sun? She said. What do you mean? I don't understand your language, said Mary. Oh, I forgot, Martha said. Mrs. Medlock told me I'd have to be careful or you wouldn't know what I was saying. I mean, can't you put on your own clothes? No, answered Mary, quite indignantly. I never did in my life. My ayah dressed me, of course. Well, said Martha, evidently not in the least aware that she was impudent, it's time thou should learn. Thou cannot begin younger. It'll do thee good to wait on the sen a bit. My mother always said she couldn't see why grandpeople's children didn't turn out fair fools, what with nurses and being washed and dressed and took out to walk as if they were puppies. It is different in India, said Mistress Mary disdainfully. She could scarcely stand this. But Martha was not at all crushed. Mary sat up in bed, furious. Mary did not even try to control her rage and humiliation. You thought I was native! You dared! You don't know anything about natives. They are not people. They are servants who you must salaam to, and you know nothing about India. You know nothing about anything. She was in such a rage and felt so helpless before the girl's simple stare, and somehow she suddenly felt so horribly lonely and far away from everything she understood, and which understood her. She threw herself face downward on the pillows and burst into passionate sobbing. She sobbed so unrestrainedly that good-natured Yorkshire Martha was a little frightened and quite sorry for her. She went to the bed and bent over her. Hey, you mustn't cry like that there, she begged. You mustn't, for sure. I didn't know you'd be vexed. I don't know anything about anything. And just like you said. Oh, I beg your pardon, miss. Do stop crying.